was studying at the Technicon, I was, before my relationship with this organization, I was just a normal artist. And in that process, I was still studying. But back then, there was a guy who used to be a president of this place, out of that committee, whom I knew from tech. He was my lecturer. And he then introduced me to this gallery. And at the time, I was doing a lot of teaching in community-based projects. And I had written an application to this organization to fund my project at home in the township where I come from. And I taught there for 2 years, funded by these guys, by this institution. And then it so happens that the curator of this gallery at the time needed someone to relieve him, because this gallery was relatively new. It was, I think this building was opened in 1996. When I was growing up, happened to when I was 14, I think, or 12 or 14. I was introduced to a community-based project called a community art workshop. And for some reason back then, I think it was 1989 or something. And for some reason then, it was dominated by the white community. And that meant, and at the time I was also working for a part on weekends for a family as a garden boy. So for some reason I learned to speak English and I learned to write English. And I think I was doing Standard 6 at the time. So when that happened within my community, they were doing these underground structures, you know, ANC structures, but the ANC was banned then. So we were called KYL and UDM and MDM with that sub-ANC branches. And I was recruited to those structures. And it was not a pleasant experience, because back then the struggle was not as it is now. It was not just politics and ties and suits. There was also physical activities, and I was exposed to stuff that a normal kid, well, ideally should not be exposed to. But now that has changed, because we now have the black middle class. You know, you now have the black people who are in government. You now have the black people who drive BMWs and so forth. You know? So when that happens, those people tend not to be able to engage a wider general black community, because the language is no longer the same. And you must bear in mind that you also now have black people who were raised in exile, who were living in the States, who were living in England, who were living all over, and now coming back home. They have no recollection of what the country is. They were born there. They're as good as you are in the country, you know what I mean? So now we have to find a way in which all communities can live together and have a common understanding, because everyone wants to believe, or we believe, that we have a rainbow nation, you know, but there are subtitles within the rainbow itself. Listen, let me put it this way. We now have a constitution that governs us in an equal manner as a start. Secondly, it is a crime for someone to be prejudiced against another person or another culture, purely on their race and religion and those kind of things. So on those bases, I can say we live in a democratic society. And of course, you know, with any of these things, it could be religion, it could be anything. You always find those people who want to maintain certain aspects of their lives. You know, and of course, at the moment, I sometimes feel that the struggle has changed, in a sense that I'm no longer running around the streets and throwing stones and doing all the stupid things we did then. But now the struggle is the HIV and AIDS.